Good morning. Welcome to day 3 of hearing 6-7. Stephen, can I just check you're our only person online? Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes. So
perfect. Wonderful. I'll just hand over to Kenton to do our opening karakia for day 3.
Taka te hau ki te ura, taka te hau ki te tanga, ki ma kine ki uta, ia ma ki taratara ke tai, ki I aki ana te atakura, I tio I huka hei hauhu te hei mauriora.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody who's online and also in the meeting room. My name is Bill Smith. I'm the chair of this independent panel. On my right, I've got Councillor Felicity Foy, who's a commissioner, and on my left, I've got Alan Watson, who's an independent commissioner. So we've been appointed by the council to consider the hearing topics, which are earthworks, temporary activities, signs, black noise, and genetically modified organisms. We've been delegated authority to consider submissions and make a recommendation to council in due course. We have read all the submissions. We've pre-read the evidence, obviously the 42A reports. As those experts and specialists who've been to hearings before, they'll understand the recommendation report is simply that to us. Once we hear the evidence, we may change what the officer says, or we may go along with what they say, depending on what the evidence we have before us. So the procedures today is we've got a number of people online. From a perspective, we're the only ones allowed to ask questions. However, we have given the officers the opportunity to ask for points of clarification from the people giving evidence today if need be. So we're fairly flexible, although there's a procedures to follow. There's really not much else to say unless you've got anybody here who's got any online who's got any questions regarding the procedures. No, and you both can hear me.
Yeah.
You can both, all right, and you can both understand me. Thank you. So I've got a few. Do you want to do the housekeeping matters just in case?
Yes, sure. So bathrooms, just head out this door and turn right. In the event of a fire evacuation, we head out these 2 doors, pull the blinds up first, and we gather over on the other side of the car park. And we are recording today's session with a very sensitive microphone, so just be aware of that if you're in the room.
So first of all, we've got NZTA Waka Katohi. We've got Evan Keaton and Stephen Childs. Is it Childs? Oh, that's how I pronounce it. Thank you. Away you go, whoever's going to start first, please.
Good morning, panel. I should go first. Unfortunately, I'm Mr. Evan Keating, not Mr. Bruce Hawkins, who was originally intended to attend, and he is the author of the evidence. I have read it and adopted it, possibly some minor changes, but nothing of significance. So I wasn't planning to read it from cover to cover, because as you said, I'm assuming you've read it, but I am happy to read it out if you prefer.
No, we have read it, but could you just outline your qualifications, experience, so we know whether you're an expert in that field? Thank you.
Yes. So my full name is Evan Alexander Keating. I'm a principal planner at New Zealand Transport Agency. I've been in the position for the last 5 years or so. I've got 19 years experience as a planner with an undergraduate in arts and a master's of city and regional planning from Cardiff University, and I'm a full member of the New Zealand Planning Institute.
Okay, and can I ask another question? The statement evidence of Mr. Hawkins, you would entirely agree with it?
Pretty much. One of the main things is on the cover it says planning and corporate. I prefer to keep it just as planning evidence, and obviously working for New Zealand Transport Agency, I know a lot about it and can answer questions on it, but at the same time I'm giving evidence as to the planning provisions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
Where you go then?
Yes, as I said, I don't intend to read the full evidence, because largely it appears that there's a high degree of alignment. It's more in the sense of the technical side of things and how best to achieve it. So from the evidence, I would direct the panel, I guess, from section 8.7 onwards in the conclusions, because everything else prior to that essentially outlines where things have been agreed and why it's an issue. And then the remaining ones are what the noise effect area is, as to whether it's a continuous 40-meter area, or if it's a variable up to 100 meters based on a contour, which is generally the preferred approach. And for, I guess, the mechanics of that, I may defer those sorts of questions to Mr. Charles. Similarly, an update to the definition of noise sensitive activity. I think the activity in the submission, or the definition of the submission, is broader and captures all the relevant activities. Similarly, on table 1, having a more nuanced approach to noise levels. Again, Mr. Charles can talk to that, but it essentially avoids the issue of over-regulating or under-regulating, instead of having a standard decibel level going up higher and lower depending on the sensitivity of activity, which I think is fairly straightforward. There's a point around whether noise being measured as an external standard. As I understand it, that is the standard way to measure it. But again, Mr. Charles can talk to that. And then changing the description of the ventilation. And then the final one is around the matters of discretion. I can understand, I've read the 42A report and understand the planners wish, I guess, to keep discretion fairly broad. And I do understand that. Even some of the things in there, things about like alternative solutions prepared by a suitably qualified acoustic engineer, I think could be considered, because those are things if you're achieving the same outcome. But other things such as legal instruments proposed, the purpose of the activity, I don't really see those as being relevant. I think if there's an effect to be managed, and if the plan sets out a level effect to be managed, then that should be a bottom line. But beyond that, the proposed provisions in the 42A report, I support them.
Okay. Now, I'm just thinking, we may have obviously got some questions. Is it worth listening to Mr. Charles first, or would you rather have the questions, Mr. Charles, of Mr. Keating, and then you maybe answer some of them when you give your evidence?
I'd prefer Mr. Charles go first, simply because he's been to so many more of these hearings on noise topics than I have, and he understands the overall topic better than I do.
Okay, all right. We'll do that then, Mr. Charles. So if you want to.
Certainly. Good morning. Thank you for letting us present evidence remotely. It's an enormous help, not flitting around the country for hearings. So I appreciate that allowance. Like Mr. Keating, you've read my evidence. I won't read the evidence. If I can just sort of draw your attention to the highlights, much as Mr. Keating has done. As the conversation has just played out, these provisions have gone into a lot of district plans around the country. There's been several recent processes, but also over the last few years. I think in the Section 42A report or Mr. Ibbetson's report, he made reference to the Whangarei process, and that was really a bit of a watershed. There were appeals on the Whangarei proposed district plan, and there was a long period of mediation following that. And out of that process, Kaigora were heavily involved. Out of that process, sort of a way forward emerged in terms of how these provisions work, and subsequently in various other districts around the country, that's they've sort of been refined and so forth. So unlike some of those other processes, I'm not sitting here saying there's a big hole in the plan and there's something that's missing. It's just refining those details and trying to pull some of that work that's been done from other districts in terms of doing that in the most efficient way. So the key point is about whether this is rules for new houses or altered houses near a state highway, and the key provision is how far from the highway do these rules need to apply. And my technical evidence is that the 40 metres misses out various houses where they should apply and possibly catches somewhere where they shouldn't. And a better way of doing it would be to adjust that distance depending on how many cars are on that, how many cars and trucks are on that particular piece of road, what the speed limit is, what the road surface is, what the terrain is. And that's the approach that was first. I think Whangarei was the first where that was mapped out, but then subsequently that approach has been adopted in various different districts. So NZTA had in its, I think it was its primary submission, it submitted that the 40 metres wasn't right and it should be 100, but it should come in where the modelling shows. NZTA has prepared an overlay. If you're happy for me to share my screen, I'll just show a snip from that.
And has this been, was that provided to the council?
It should have been provided to the council. Because this process is elongated and the plan is responsible within NZTA has changed, I haven't quite got my finger on whether that happened or not. The overlay was prepared, it was in the submission, and it's a simple GIS mechanics transferring the files if that hasn't happened.
Just so you know, Mr. Childs, the staff are shaking their heads. I don't know if you can see the staff, but they're shaking their heads that they haven't seen it.
Right.
We've got Mr. Everton here as well, and he hasn't seen it. But anyway, you carry on, and then we'll just have to deal with it appropriately.
Certainly. So there's a mechanical thing about just a GIS shapefile going from person A to person B. Yep. In terms of everyone knowing what's coming, the NZTA submission says 100 metres or less where it comes in by the shapefile. So people know that this will extend up to 100 metres. So the green area I'm showing you here does not extend further than NZTA raised in its submission. So there's no no additional people potentially affected that wouldn't have known about it. So to the green area that's shown on here, this is north of Kaitaia, Awanui, where you've got State Highway 1 and State Highway 10. And I've chosen this just because it shows a few issues. You can see the green area shrinks up where the speed limits reduce. And also where there's buildings, there's sort of slightly crinkly edges where there's a bit of screening by buildings. To the south, the overlay expands out towards 100 metres where there's reasonable traffic volumes. As it goes to the north of the town, there's lower traffic volumes and the contours come in, and then on State Highway 10 it's somewhere in the middle. And so you can see that the area affected is is being refined based on the traffic volumes and the speeds and so forth. And I think the officers suggested that was the appropriate way forwards in their report as well. And the way in which this overlay is prepared, it's identical to the one that came out through Whangarei and various other districts. I can talk in painstaking details about the mechanics of how it's all arisen. I'm not sure that's necessary, but I'm happy to do so. And likewise, I don't have perhaps if I'm quiet now and just leave it if there's any points you'd like me to further clarify.
Probably better if we ask you questions and then you can deal with whatever issues we have. I don't know what. So can the staff confirm that information was there? Was it part of the NZTA submission?
It's in conversations with the Baxter. We haven't seen it.
The planning staff haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it. We're not aware of it being part of the submission. We can confirm that. We can look at the original submission, which we have all recorded on council's page. But we can confirm that. But obviously, it's difficult to confirm where shapefiles have been exchanged.
Yep.
Obviously, that would not form part of paper submission, which is probably what we have recorded. So, and I think, so at this stage, I can't confirm.
Okay, well, what the staff will have to do is have a look, obviously, research what we receive electronically by the council, and then they'll probably have to deal with it in their right of reply, which will be in about 4 weeks' time, unfortunately.
I can. So I'm one step. I'm just a independent acoustics, so I'm not involved in the mechanics. But what I can confirm is that at the time the submission was lodged, the shapefile had not been produced and was not available. So in the submission, it said 100 meters or an overlay if an overlay is available. Because there was a delay in the plan and so forth, the overlay did become available, and I had understood that when it was produced, it was then provided, but that might not have happened.
Okay.
The key point was that the submission referenced the fact it could go out to 100, and it referenced that an overlay was the preferred approach. And I'm not sure there's, if the council are saying they haven't received it, I'm not sure there's too much to be gained from someone digging through the archives. If the commissioners are minded to use the overlay, then I'm sure NZTA can transfer that.
Okay.
Got a request, Mr. Chair, that NZTA provide council at the very least with the overlay, so we can just go through and do some analysis.
So as soon as you get opportunity, if you send it through to Miss AK, the administrator, or whichever reference you've got for the council, but definitely AK, and then she can forward it on to the planning staff.
Yeah, that will do.
Okay. Now, who do you want to start? Do you want to start?
Which to whom? To the
Either
boys?
I mean, just ask a question. I mean, I've got a question, and then I've just got one quick question. With the overlay and the variable distances, like driving up here, Alan, Mr. Watson and I came from just outside of North Auckland, and the road tar seal is not very good. Now, you say you can't internalise all the noise effects. However, what's the noise difference between what I call the chip tar seal and the smooth tar seal? Is it significant? Because
Yes.
if the roads were smooth tar seal, you probably wouldn't need such a bigger boundary. And not only are the chip seal roads not very good, there are also a lot of holes. So does that make a big difference as well?
So there is a significant difference between the noise from a chip seal road surface and the porous asphalts or the smooth black surfaces. At highway speeds, most of the noise is generated by the tyre on the road surface, and so that's why changing the road surface can make a significant difference. In decibels, it can be as much as a 10 decibel change between the chip seal and the asphalt. But it also, there's a characteristic on the asphalt which is slightly less annoying. Ideally, the entire state highway network, 11,000 kilometres, would all be the nice smooth asphalt. At the moment, I think it's about 10% or so forth that's asphalt. The vast majority of the network is the chip seal surfaces. I'm going to stray slightly outside my lane as an acoustician because I think I can provide some information around road surfaces, but please, this is coming from an acoustician. My understanding is that the underlying pavement on the New Zealand State Highway network, because we're maintaining a large network relative to the population size, they use flexible pavements, which are relatively cost effective, but they move. If you put the asphalt on those flexible pavements, the black stuff, then the smooth black stuff, then it will crack. So there's not enough rigidity or whatever it is in the pavements to have that smoother road surface. You can dig up the pavement and put down a structural, a big solid structural pavement that will then take that, but it's enormous amounts of money. So currently, to maintain the size of the network we've got
Chip seal. Yes.
We've got chip seals over the majority of the rural network, and the asphalts are more the 30 millimeters of surface is more expensive than the chip seal, but you can't put that down anyway because you'd actually have to replace most of the underlying layers, which then becomes prohibitively expensive.
Thank you. Commissioner Foy.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, kia ora korua. So I've got a number of questions, and thanks for giving that presentation. I'm actually from the area that you provided the picture of. My first question is, the original submission talked about an average of 15,000 daily one-way traffic movements. In that area, the state highway's been closed for almost 4 years. When was that average taken? Was it taken when there's been everyone using State Highway 10 instead of State Highway 1? And what were these model methodologies taken for?
So I'm not. I can't immediately place the reference you made to in the submission about the 15,000 vehicles. But in terms of the noise model, so it was undertaken by AECOM. They took the traffic counts for the network at a point in time. I've got it written in my.
That's my question. When is that point in time?
Right. Let me find that. It was the 2020-2021 year. So the traffic counts across the region, the counts come in over a period of time. So it's not a single day, but it was the data set that existed at 2020-2021.
And when did the Mother's State Highway 1 close? My understanding was at that time.
I don't know.
What I'm highlighting is that the model is potentially flawed because all of the traffic in all of the far north was being made to use State Highway 10, which is what's shown on your map, because State Highway 1 has been closed because the slip.
I think so while I've not been able to address the specifics because I don't know those details. The broader point that you've correctly highlighted is that a limitation of the model is that it represents the network at a point in time or a year in time, and over the life of this plan, the 10-year or life of this plan, the noise will change, and that the overlay won't be. There'll be some places where it will be slightly too big, and there will be some places where it's slightly too small. And so when the plan review comes through, it will be necessary to adjust the overlay. And previously NZTA has always promoted just using fixed distances. It's just said, well, if it's this size highway, we'll use 100 meters, and that avoids some of that change. But then you don't get the benefit of refining where the rules apply. So if there's a particular circumstance here that's caused a gross error, then perhaps the overlay isn't appropriate. But generally there will be, as the network changes, there'll be parts of the overlay that become out of date. In other districts where there's a designation for a new road, then we've had to go in and manually sort of put that into the overlay. So where there is a significant change, we've made a manual adjustment. That's not been done here, but as you see, if you highlighted, if there was a abnormal traffic flow, then potentially the overlay is not appropriate in that location.
So you probably see the traffic count on State Highway 1 is 0, and the State Highway 10 is double.
So I know from that the contours I was showing you that the traffic count wasn't 0, because if it was 0,
oh, it's State Highway 1. I'm meaning that's State Highway 10, which is the one that took all the traffic because there was no other road left for 4 years.
So at the time those contours were done, traffic was modelled on State Highway 1, so that would indicate that it wasn't in that period, because there was still a up to 100 metre contour on State Highway 1 between Kaitaia and Awanui.
Are you able, after you've given the evidence today, to get confirmation of that, and then you can send it to AK so the council staff can have a look and just to make sure? When you took the modelling based on the traffic counts 2020-2021, you can get confirmation from NZTA whether State Highway 1 was closed when you did the modelling or whether it was open.
I can look into it.
Not you personally, I'm talking about NZTA. Yeah, I'm talking about NZTA, Mr. Keating.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and it's probably a very unusual situation. We didn't want to lose our State Highway 1 for 4 years, but you know, these things happen. So that was one of the questions I had. The other questions that I had was, you talked about the speed, and then you talked about, I think you used the term noise contours based on the speed, and then the area is increased for the noise sensitive distance, and then reduced as the speed goes down. Can you explain how that works, and maybe you zoom in on the township? Because why I'm asking this is our district is very extremely large geographically, and all of our towns are accessed directly off the state highway. We have all of our towns maybe, you know, 5 meters off the state highway for all of our townships in the far north. And I'm not sure if you know the number of townships we have, but further north to Cape Reinga, we have Te Pole, which is, we've got like a marae, shops, you know, little houses. I mean, they know that the state highway is there, it's not a surprise to them. But then you'd have larger townships like Kawakawa or Kaikohe. So all of them are directly off the state highway. It's not like a motorway. So I'm asking that question in that context. We were just in Paihia, and all the hotels are right up to the state highway. And there's new mixed use zones that are proposed in those existing towns. So can you give context about that speed specifically, and specifically in the town environments? And the other question I had about that is not just new houses or new buildings, how that relates to additions. You know, how additions would work. You know, let's just say the marae wanted to do a mattress room, or the house wanted to do an addition to the lounge.
Certainly. So there were previous questions about road surfaces, and I was explaining how road surfaces are at highway speeds. Road surfaces are a major influence. The speed of traffic does also change noise levels. If you only change by 10 kilometers an hour, it could be a decibel depending on where the change is. But if you're changing from 100 to 50, that's a larger difference. If I share the map again. So this is zoomed in. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's somewhere in this area, I'd be pretty certain there's a speed limit change, because I've got wide contours out to the right, and then they shrink in as I come to further to the left there. And so I'm pretty sure that's just reflecting there'll be a speed limit change in that location there. So the modelling that's been used to generate the contours has got the speed limit for every section of road, and so where the traffic's travelling faster, the contours will expand out. There's multiple factors at play. Sometimes as you come out of the townships, the land's more open, and so the contours travel out because the land's more open. But in this instance, I'll be fairly certain there's a speed limit change in that area. The map's a little bit slow to render, but if I go to some of those other areas you were talking about.
Just letting you know as well, I think it was last year, all of the speed limits changed on the state highway. They're all 80 now, 60 or 80, 60, 80 again.
So if we remodeled with speed limits coming from 100 to 80,
yes,
then in some places the overlay would get smaller.
Okay.
The remodeling is hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of things, of projects. So this is done on a national level, and so it's only going to be done at sort of a longer period. So we're not trying to chase our tails keeping this up to date year by year. So as I said before, there will be there will be factors that change it, and the speed limit's one of them. That's sorry, my job is that.
But in this, can I just interrupt? In this case, though, you've provided a modelling. Well, you've asked for a modelling to go be imposed on the district plan. You've come up with this modelling today. We're probably going to recommend the decisions to the council in 2026, the middle of 2026. The plan's life is then for basically 10 years. That's a long time if the modelling's not correct. If it's based on 100 kilometres rather than 80 kilometres, the modelling's totally incorrect for the next 12 years roughly, or 10 years. So can it be? If we decided to go down this course, could you NZTA not produce a new model based on the new updated speed limits if you want us to put in the district plan?
So the so as I say, the modelling is a convoluted, relatively expensive process. So
I understand that.
So from a technical perspective, it's not something that's easy to turn around. It's up to NZTA, but my understanding is that wouldn't happen on a district by district basis. I'm not aware that they've had any funding for that. But the safety valve here is the default would be to set a fixed 100-metre corridor, and everyone within that 100-metre corridor has got to be assessed, got to look at the provisions. What the overlay is doing, it's getting people out of having to look at the provisions. So people within the overlay, they still go and do a site-specific assessment, and if, because there's been changes in the interim, the noise exposure is less, they may find they don't need to treat the house, so they can tick compliance with the rule. So just because you're in the overlay doesn't mean you've then got to treat the building. It just means you've got to look at the specific circumstances in more detail. So the overlay is excluding people from the rule. It's not capturing extra people, and there's, as I've discussed, there's some areas where that's not going to be perfect, but it's if I go into this example, I mean, this is a good example here. So if these houses were being newly built, they wouldn't have to look at compliance with the rule if you're using the overlay, whereas if you'd used a 100-metre fixed distance, they would have been captured, and they'd have to go through the process of showing that the noise exposure was less. So it's not perfect, but it's more efficient in the fact that there's a block of houses here or a block of land here, and there's lots of other examples all around the district where people would be able to very quickly say, right, I'm outside the overlay, I don't need to do anything else. Whereas if you'd used fixed distances, then they'd have to go through a process to look at their noise exposure. I had some other questions backed up. Shall I?
Yeah, carry on.
Go to those, or
yeah, by all means.
I was just doing. I mean, this is just another example of speed limits where you can see that where the lines have come in. That's because the speed limits through the township are less than out on the open road. I'm more than happy to go to any other places around the district. I'll say some can be a little bit slow loading at times, but there was another question around altered buildings. So the provisions should not apply retrospectively. So for an existing house, nothing's changing. There's no obligation and there's no requirement to do anything under the provisions. If there's a new house, you've got to design the new house properly and put in appropriate treatment as required. For additions and alterations, from a technical perspective, if you're adding a new room, if you're converting a garage or you're extending a house, that's a really good, efficient time to put in appropriate acoustic controls. So while you've got the builders there, the linings of as you're converting a garage and all the linings are happening, that's the efficient time to address the noise controls. If you're just repainting the inside of a house or you're moving your furniture around, the controls shouldn't apply. In other processes around the country, there's been a lot of debate between the planners in terms of crafting how you you write that, but technically the outcome should be that if you're doing works to add a room or to convert a room into a sensitive space, then the rule should apply. If you're doing minor internals, let's say decoration and general maintenance, then the rule shouldn't apply. And I say if you've got 20 different district plans, the wording on that's been done numerous different ways as to how to make that distinction.
But at the end of the day, when you're administering the control, the only way that the planner can't administer that because the planner doesn't have sufficient knowledge of the noise controls or the technical nature of the noise controls. I mean, what you're putting on people is the need to employ a noise specialist to provide that sort of advice to the council when they want to do a bedroom addition to their house. Isn't that particularly onerous on people?
So if there's a new building or an addition alteration, then yes, a noise specialist is required to make that assessment. So there is a cost associated with that, and that is the cost of building next to the highway as opposed to further away from the highway. So if you're building in an environment which is affected by noise that has adverse health effects, then the cost of building in that environment on that section is the fact that you're going to have to get an acoustic specialist, much the same as if you're building on contaminated land or where there's a geotech requirement, that if you're choosing to build on that land that's got some issue, then there's a cost to developing on that land. We've done, NZTA has looked at the cost on a new building, and on the new building, the cost of the provisions is sort of between nothing and 2% of the new building cost. So that's sort of the order of magnitude of cost that's incurred.
Said nothing to 10%?
Yes, from 0 to 2%. 2%,
sorry, okay, thank you. In a lot of rural locations around New Zealand, far north included, you have people building houses fairly close to the state highway for reasons that they don't want to have a long driveway. They don't want to go to the expense of having to form a 100-metre driveway to their house, so they might build somewhat closer. The application of this rule, obviously, unless people do additions, their house is fine, but as soon as you go to do anything, they immediately become into this non-complying situation. So, you're you'd be creating a lot of houses throughout the district as being basically putting them into that non-complying category. They're just non-complying in the sense that they're not able to meet the current requirements if these requirements were carried through. How did they deal with that? I mean, it might be a question for Evan, perhaps more so than yourself, but I mean, how have they dealt with that in other places like in Whangarei? I mean, that is similar, but maybe there are some differences as well between the two districts. So
I will let Evan talk because there's planning stuff there, but just to clarify that, so this is a permitted activity rule. So all the an existing house in a rural area near the highway, this rule doesn't apply to them. It's only for new and altered buildings. And if it's a new building, it's still you're permitted to build. It's a permitted activity standard, providing you can achieve a reasonable internal noise level. And if you're weighing up, do I pay for services down the driveway to get outside this zone, or do I pay for a ventilation system so I've got reasonable internal noise levels? That's a choice that somebody has to make.
Yeah, the only thing to add to that in terms of, because it may well be that you don't need ventilation or any changes, may just be the cost, may just be the acoustic report. And in terms of how these additions play out, my experience really in the Auckland region through the plan changes we've had on each greenfield one where the provisions are added. For Mr. Childs, I know that was debated at length in Whangarei as to how to sleep outs and what size a building would be captured as an addition. I can't remember if there was like a threshold that was provided.
There was a 5 square meters in Whangarei, but that's the bit that's varied around the country as to what the.
Like I said, it is the sticking point, because I take the Commissioner's point in terms of whether it's an owner's requirement, because obviously as a new build house, with the current building code and everything else, there is a lot of costs in general, but relative to your final product, they may not be that high. I understand that the cost of an acoustic report relative to the building of an addition is proportionately higher.
Yeah, I think you brought up a relevant point. In the far north, people aren't building houses because the land value is so low and the cost of building houses so high that the cumulative increase in costs, such as an acoustic engineer and mechanical ventilation, the cumulative cost of the house is actually more expensive. They're overcapitalizing to build a new building. I've got a question about where this would apply, because it says 15,000 daily movement was originally in your submission. Is there 15,000 one-way daily movements at Te Coal? Compared like the different parts of the highway, or I guess it's a question for Evan.
Yeah, no, my understanding was that the notified version of the plan had the 15,000 as a threshold by which the rule would apply, and NZTA's submission was that there are no roads at 15,000, therefore it should be deleted.
Yes, so that was my question. So there are no roads at 15,000. Like for example, Whangarei or Auckland, which obviously means that. So, yeah, essentially, do we need these rules of the setback of 40 or 100 metres if we don't have the same amount of traffic movements? We don't have, the same density, and in terms of the health aspect, all of our townships in our whole district are unhealthy because the noise specialist has said that noises are unhealthy effects in all of our townships. Every single one of them is built within 5 or 10 metres of the state highway. Is our district, have you had lots of concern from all of our townships raised at a national level of the unhealthy effects of noise in all of our towns?
So I can address it. I apologize. I've got my head around that 15,000 vehicles now, as Evan said. It wasn't a number that came from NZTA in the first place, and I don't know where it came from. And in terms of noise, the 15,000 isn't of any particular relevance. It was a number that somehow crept into the drafting of the notified version, and NZTA submitted to have it removed. As I've shown from the modelling, there is noise exposure at levels that need treating throughout this district, even with the actual traffic flows in this district. In terms of that health effect, so road traffic noise, there's been a lot of research internationally. It's received sort of quite substantial sort of effort over several decades. There's been shown there's causal link between exposure to different levels of road traffic noise and adverse health outcomes. That occurs in virtually every country in the world, or every developed country with road traffic. And in Europe, it's about 20–25% of the population is exposed to road traffic noise that's causing adverse health effects. New Zealand, there's been a study published, the report finally made it out last week, which shows that there's a similar situation here where it's a quarter or a fifth of the population is exposed to unhealthy noise levels, and that will definitely include all of those houses you're referring to where they're sitting 5 metres away from state highways. So there is an adverse health effect, the same as there's an adverse air quality effect, and there's all sorts of other effects. Previously, we didn't have very good quantification of what those sorts of effects were. We now know they're there. NZTA, from previous research, it's had an environmental plan saying, okay, look, as we go forward, we need to take steps to try and reduce road traffic noise exposure. But in the meantime, we want to stop the problem getting any bigger. So one of the things we can do to stop the problem getting any bigger is, as new houses build near to the highways, to make sure those ones are treated so that the internal conditions do give a healthy living environment. So it's all about achieving a healthy living environment for those occupants. And as I say, there's a range of other measures that NZTA works through to try and reduce noise from the network, but it's very much a long-term process.
I have 3 other questions. 2 were about the planning requirements for the acoustic. So you've said that an addition is proposed, and you're proposing that to cover in the rule. A garage is not included because that's not a noise sensitive activity like a workshop or garage, non-habitable. It's not covered.
Correct. Likewise, bathrooms and utility spaces. And actually, it's very advantageous if you put your garage and your bathrooms by the highway, then you may find you don't need to do anything to treat your bedrooms if they're facing away. So the rules definitely do not apply to non-sensitive spaces such as the garages.
What about relocated houses, like a second-hand house that you relocate? So it's an older house, but it's been introduced into a site.
I'd have to check the wording of this particular plan, but from a noise point of view, the rule should apply to a relocated house being newly erected on a site.
I don't see how they could ever comply.
Have to be agreed.
Yeah,
Would have to be
no
agreed.
point.
Ms. Davidson, have you got a point of clarification of?
If you would like me to comment on relocated houses, I can. In Whangarei, relocated houses have been located within the noise control boundary or whatever term is used in that district. And I have consulted on those. They are difficult because people don't tend to have much money if they're relocating houses. They tend to be very fee sensitive. The projects are also problematic because often the houses aren't available to assess, so there's a lot of risk to the consultant and to the client. They are very painful jobs, and from a business point of view, I'm tempted not to take them on. I tend to because people tend to talk me into it, but I hate it. So it is a frustrating thing to have to deal with.
Okay. But likewise, because someone's of limited means, that's a poor reason to give that they should be exposed to adverse health effects that someone with more funds isn't. So the rules there should be an equitable outcome here that everyone has that same protection from health effects.
I mean, the ratepayers of the Far North might say the same about roads. The health effects, why isn't NZTA spending more money to reduce our health effects and giving us smooth seal?
That's a political question that could be asked. So I can talk about some things NZTA is doing, but there's always a continuum of work that could be undertaken, and there's a political direction as to where funding's allocated.
That's a very good question, though, I think, and there's probably why you don't have a straight answer to it. But why is the onus put on the landowner or the residents to meet these standards that NZTA wishes to impose? Why is the obligation not put back on NZTA to meet those requirements with a smooth road surface or the like, or a variable road surface when you go through areas where there's residents as opposed to there not being residents?
So there's in response to the previous questions in terms of the adverse health effects from road traffic noise, there is a long-term programme of work needed to provide better living conditions for the entire community. From a technical point of view, there are no practicable methods where I could reduce the noise exposure of the majority of the community within a matter of years, or possibly even within a matter of decades. So we know we've got to do a long-term programme of works. In the interim, we know there's harm, and we know we can avoid that harm for new people coming into that environment. So there's two choices. You can either say, the airports just say, no, you can't build near the airports. You're a non-complying activity or prohibited activity. With the roads, because of the relationship, everyone needs transport and so forth, and it's efficient to build near roads. So you're saying houses can still build near the roads as permitted activities, but where they're coming in, we're having to make sure those new and altered houses have got healthy living conditions. And we know that there's a long-term issue that's also got to be addressed. But there's a practical opportunity to make better conditions for those people now, and not addressing that when it's practical to do so, because there might be a fix in decades' time, is from a technical point of view is nonsensical.
I think you raise a practical question, point there, that it's practical to do so. So I think that's a question for Evan. For the Far North District, how many properties will this affect because of, you know, how many kilometres? When you look at it in square metres, you know, the number and scale of this rule and how many ratepayers or property owners, whenua Māori, the poorest area in the whole of the country, will this affect, you know, in a practical terms?
I can't give an exact answer on that, but I think the absolute number will be quite low. I did have a quick look at the Stats NZ for residential building consents for the district recently. I believe it's about 70 per quarter. That's across the whole district. I think it's, you know, in national terms, it's quite a low number. I don't know if you worked out as proportion of relative to the existing population, but I think in terms of the number of building consents, and I might one of the council planners would be better able to advise on that. And I would imagine many of those are close to the state highways, but not necessarily in that 40 to 100 meters. I'm not sure that helps, but I think the absolute number would be overall relatively low.
Not the number of building consent, the square metres, the geographical spread of the number of properties. It would be thousands.
It
thousands
probably
of kilometres.
It probably would be. I suspect Mr. Charles might have a better answer on that. But I guess my point was, as he has said, it doesn't affect existing residents. It's only per new dwelling or new, you know, habitable sensitive space. So if you have a stretch of highway or a township where essentially no one is building houses, then the rule is irrelevant and it doesn't impose a cost.
Well, they just don't build a house.
Okay. I've got a quick question regarding in 5.2, paragraph 5.3 of your evidence, Mr. Charles, you referred to the overlays produced by NZTA to the far north as an identical basis to Whangarei District Council. So was that after your appeal to the Whangarei District Plan, and what sort of mediation took place to get it in the plan?
So yes, it arose. It was after the appeal. At the time, Kāinga Ora were putting any provisions that might restrict housing under the microscope, and Kāinga Ora appealed as well. And so there was the council, NZTA, Kāinga Ora, Mr. Ibbotson, I think, was there for University of Auckland, had a site in the area. So we had the planning and the acoustics experts, and we had this very protracted process where the solution that the parties agreed to was, well, if the area affected was refined through modelling and contours, then the likes of Kāinga Ora and the council could support the controls where they couldn't support them if it was just a blanket distance. And so there was the national modelling going on in the background, but at that time NZTA as a pilot pulled that district forward, generated the contours, and there's GIS processing to smooth them out. And so that had, you can see them on the online maps of that district plan. You can see they've got a brown hatched area which comes in and out, much the same as the green area I've been showing you here. I think if you did accept it, I think that green area would end up as a brown hatch according to the national planning the mapping standards. And so the green that I've been showing you here it was the same consultants, AECOM, who produced the contours, that they have then been smoothed, and so it's on the same basis there, and it's also on the same. I've lost track a little bit as to which plans have reached their conclusions, but the very same process has gone into the Waikato. I was at Gore hearing last week, and West Coast and Waimakariri, and Otaronga's coming up. So there's a whole heap of them which are sort of following the same process.
And if those processes end up where you don't get what you're asking for, obviously then possibly there's appeals. Did the Environment Court direct you to do remodelling before they put it in settling the appeal?
So this has never gone to hearing. So to my knowledge, so the Whangarei and Waikato were both appeals, and that was resolved by consent order in both cases.
And in the case of the Whangarei one, you did the remodelling, so you could refine
We did, and that was the first one. And then while that was going on, we got the modelling for the whole country. So we got the national, and then we can take each district out as it comes. I think Porirua I can't remember whether the consent order's been signed, but that's under mediation, and there's another one as well. New Plymouth, I think we're. So there's a number of them around the country that have been appealed while the details get refined. Most of the districts that have happened more recently, so the appellants, it was usually a Kaingaroa and a NZTA and a KiwiRail. Kaingaroa, I don't know why they're not, but Kaingaroa got to a position where they were comfortable with the provisions, and so NZTA and Kaingaroa there was a set of provisions that those parties were comfortable with, and I think they've sort of been accepted more readily into subsequent plans.
So I'm just thinking, if we decided to put it in or consider putting it in, but we wanted it remodeled to show exactly the effects on the Far North District Council, how long would that take NZTA to do? So we've got a number of options. We just don't put it in and accept that this is all modelling, or
it's a question for everyone. I'm 99% sure that NZTA wouldn't remodel, because my technical advice to them would be that's going to be a significantly expensive exercise. There's marginal benefit given the fact that the differences aren't going to be huge, and the timeframes quite long on those exercises. When I talk to Mr. Ibbotson and we say, well, we run a noise model, it doesn't take long, but the proof of when we've tried it a number of times nationally and on a district level is that the complexities, it ends up taking months and months to work through.
Yeah.
So instead of remodelling, if we stuck to the 40 metres, that's we're talking about here. I just wanted to check with the noise experts. You know, you're saying it's very expensive and time consuming to do modelling, and you know, I'm sure that people might think it's too expensive and time consuming to do acoustic reports for every house in the Far North near the State Highway. If we went with 40 metres instead of 100 metres, I'd like to hear your views on that as noise experts from both acoustic engineers.
So if I'll go
You
first.
go first,
I've
Mr.
got a
Chairman,
microphone.
and then I'll have to step in.
So usually I might be clutching at straws, whereas here, because we have the modelling, I know that there are adverse effects that would go unmitigated out to 100 metres through much of the district. So in the townships where if the traffic's lower and the speed's lower, the 40 metres would probably be adequate in some areas. But as on the open roads, the 40 metres would be inadequate and would not address those adverse effects. So that's why NZTA's submission says if you're going to go for a fixed distance, make it 100. But if you're going to adjust that to different speeds, then pull it in where the overlay shows you to pull it in. I'll hand over to Peter.
So I guess agree with Stephen there, but perhaps I would just elaborate. I suppose 40 metres covers the very worst of the effects that might occur from a road. The noise level that you might get at 40 metres might be above 60 decibels in some cases, and within that 40 decibels close to the road, it could be up to perhaps 80 decibels. If you look at an example of the dwellings that are in Wairau, which are just outside Hikurangi, you drive through and those dwellings are very close to the road, probably within 10 metres or so. The noise level from that road, which carries about 10,000 vehicles per day, at the facade of those dwellings is in the order of about 80 decibels, maybe a little lower. It's very high. And so you can see that sort of capturing within 40 metres would cover the very worst of the effects. And then I think what Dr. Charles is saying is that between 40 and 100 metres, there would be other dwellings which would likely receive noise levels of above 55, 57 decibels, and that NZTA's position is that they should also be addressed given the effects that might be on them as well. A lower effect than 40, but an effect nonetheless to help them.
I think maybe the term, no more than minor, less than minor, the terms under the act. If you're within 5 metres, it has more effect. It was 40 metres. Then we talked about the townships and speed. So in terms of minor or more than minor, well, your view of that for a township or an 80-kilometre area, which may be, wrongly modelled in the current model that we've seen. How can you give some narrative about that? The way that we might think about it as planet.
It's a bit of a challenging question. I suppose what I would say is that if you look at what a typical threshold for noise effects are in a district, say during the daytime, you might see zone noise limits of 50 to 55 decibels, right? So beyond that, above that, say above 55 decibels, there's generally held to be a noise effect on people who live in those environments who receive more noise than that. And what NZTA is saying sort of broadly equates to that, and that there is an effect where people are exposed to traffic noise levels of above, say 55 decibels, perhaps 57 decibels. There starts to be an amenity effect, and potentially there starts to be a health effect, and that health effect worsens as the noise gets louder. Dr. Charles might like to address this also. So I would say that that's essentially what we are talking about here. We're talking about that there is an effect beyond, let's say, 55 decibels, and that what NZTA are trying to deal with is the mitigation of that effect and potentially the health effects as
well. As Commissioner, it's possible I do have a couple of planning comments to add, which hopefully will be helpful. I think between the two experts there, it's been quite useful to understand that when you talk about like the 100 versus 40, whatever it is, it's in the townships that it narrows down. So in a sense, it's less relevant as to whether it's a country or not, because you will naturally narrow it down, and that's where the existing developments are. And this also goes back to Commissioner Watson's question around who should pay for these things, who should the cost lie on the road versus the householder. When it comes to the open road, from a planning point of view, to me, it's quite simple that the effect is caused by the person building the house. Because if it's an open road with no dwellings, there is no effect. There is sound associated with a road, but that's not an effect. It's simply sound. Whereas when the person builds a house next to a road which is authorized, they then create the health effect on themselves. Therefore, from my understanding of reverse sensitivity on the planning basis, that the cost of mitigating that effect should lie with the person causing the effect, which is the householder.
But in terms of the existing environment, isn't that supposed to take in the permitted baseline, which includes as a right building a house?
Yes, but equally, the road is designated, so the road can produce sound without conditions. So there's no restriction on that. And again, go back to whether it's an effect or not. When there is sound in the countryside and no one hears it, there is no effect. But when a person tries to sleep next to that sound, then an effect is generated.
Any other comments from anybody? No? No?
Can I just confirm that there's a large degree of agreement between Mr. Ribbetts and myself, and I sort of agree with what he was saying previously. I just had a small elaboration on what Mr. Ribbetson was saying. He was saying so clearly the effects are worse close to the road, and they reduce as you move away. But also the rules are really neat because it's a performance standard. You're trying to get to a reasonable level inside a bedroom. So when you're very close to the road, you might have to do quite a bit to meet that level in the bedroom. Whereas as you move further away, these smarts, like just turning your house around if the sun allows you to, so that your bedrooms aren't facing the road, you might not need to do anything else. Or in a lot of cases, it's just making sure you can shut the windows facing the road. So applying over 100 metres, it's not going to be a one size fits all. So the people towards the outer end, they'll have to do less to get that reasonable level in their bedrooms. They'll still have to do something, but it might be a lower cost option.
Sorry, just want to like when they're finished, we'll probably have some points of clarification.
So have you finished? We finished our question. Just you might have to come back in. Mr. Witham's going to just ask for a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just I mean, in the presentation, we heard that when there are changes, surface changes, speed limit changes, designation changes, additional work is done around that modelling. So I guess I want to be, from my understanding, so NZTA does not pay for that first schedule process to update that modelling in the plan. That is still on
the
territorial authority.
So the overlay, if it's accepted by the council, would go into the plan until such time as there's a plan change. Unless there was something radically different, there's never been an intention to update these on a 2 or 3 yearly basis. So unless there was a major new highway designated or something like that, I wouldn't expect any plan change process to change that overlay until the next plan review.
Okay. Yeah, that's the basis of my question, but I do have probably some feedback to the panel that would be appropriate for NZTA. Yeah. Just on the fact that we haven't had the opportunity at this stage to look through the proposed modelling, and we probably want some time to be able to do that. We'll do that within our right of reply period, but there may be some additional evidence well, not some extensions. I think some additional evidence that might come out of that hasn't been included in the section 42A. Just signal that to you now. If we look through it, we have some further comments or questions on it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Mr. Davidson.
I have many things, but the question is whether they'll be useful to you. On that matter, for the Whangarei appeal, NZ, and just to clarify my involvement in the Whangarei appeal, it was looking at rail and I was in fact involved in the grading aspect. But I can say that as part of that appeal, there was a methodology that was provided which detailed how the noise modelling was developed. And it seems to me that possibly in the reasons of democracy, it might be sensible for NZTA to provide that methodology to this hearing so that that can be reviewed, at least in principle, to confirm to you that the modelling is at least has a firm grounding, a peer review of that modelling. I expect that it will be acceptable, but you may like to consider it.
Yeah, I suppose my concern, or one of the concerns, one thing they're going to consider is the modelling 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. We're not going to recommend to council that 2026. That plan has a 10-year life, and the modeling's out of date when we start now. So that's a concern I have. But
yeah, Mr. Chair, I think what Mr. Robertson's requesting is the methodology as opposed to the lines on the map.
Yeah, no.
Which I think are separate matters.
Could I interject? So we're open book. So in the appendix to my evidence, I've set out the summary of the methodology, and the AECOM report that sets out their full methodology. That's available on the NZTA website, and I can provide a link to that very easily. Also, if it helps the commission, I'm more than happy to liaise with Mr. Robertson to provide any further information I can. I personally didn't undertake the modelling, but I can probably answer the questions.
As I said, the officers are going to respond to everything they've heard and the evidence, etc., within 4 weeks. So during that 4 weeks, whatever you and Mr. Everson and Mr. Keaton and the reporting planners want to discuss, you can, and then we can get reported back in due course. And when your officers report back, it will be downloaded onto the council website, and you will be notified that it's been put on. So you'll be able to see what they're reporting back to us.
Just as well, noting all of the speed changes and probably our roading or ZTA might need to include when those dates happened as well as when the state highways closed, because now most of the state highways here are 80 instead of 100. I'm not sure actually how that affects the model.
If I could, so just comment on that, and I can't speak on which authority, but as I understand it, a lot of the more recent speed reductions, the current government has proposed that they be reversed. And I can't speak to the process of that because I presume it was a two-way process in terms of that, but they may not stay as 80.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that if there's nothing else.
But I appreciate that. That means that yes, could go down in terms of, goes back to your question around the modelling and the date and how it projects forward.
All right, thank you very much for your evidence. If there's nothing else, we'll enjoy the rest of the day.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
I'll be seeing you later.
What if you could touch base, Evan, with me? That would be, or through AK, that would be to talk through some other district plan matters. That'd be great.
Yes, I will, and I will find those GIS files. I had thought they'd been sent previously, and I apologise for that.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
We're going to take an adjournment now, or we're going to?
Yes, we'll take an adjournment. So I'm stopping the recording and muting the room.